And we're always looking for more volunteers. Anything you would like to help anybody who's volunteering, if you think you can help them, it's always great to have as many as you can get.
I have a tough job. I got to travel the world. Products take people fuel and so forth on certain islands, and they have prisons on certain islands, but they make the best of everything, which is unbelievable. And you get around by boat, or if you're well-heeled and can afford it, seaplanes. And a lot of Europeans go there to vacation, and you see the seaplanes going over all the time where they transport tourists to their resorts that are anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 a night. Anyway, they have the fancy resorts. This was taken off the internet. This is my photo here, but anyways, what they are proud of there is their boats and their style of boats that I thought, this is really a goofy looking boat, and so is this one here, but they're well done, they're well made, they're all mahogany and teak, they're absolutely gorgeous. Now we were greeted by the dive boat. Now we went on a dive boat here. They call it a liveaboard, where they sleep you, they feed you, and you go diving off of it. And this is the small boat. It was a 40-footer. They picked us up at the airport and took us to our big boat. That's our small boat now. And they took us to the big boat. And this is one of the big boats. Now what happens is in Mali is that they have overdeveloped the tourism islands. They only allow a certain number of tourist islands as far as resorts. Once those are filled, you cannot build anymore. But they don't have a limit on liveaboards. And this is an example of liveaboard. And the boats are usually a minimum of 100 foot long. And again, you sleep on it, they feed you, everything. And they usually have a smaller boat, like what you see next to it, that you go diving on. You just step on and off, they take you. So you have a floating resort here. Our resort, floating resort, was this one here, called Maldives Princess. It was 147 feet long. In the States, it would cost about $10 million to build this boat. There, it cost about $2 million. And it took about 5 years for them to build this boat. Anyway, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's all wood. And the craftsmanship on it is phenomenal. And they had hot tub on it and flat screen TVs everywhere. We never watched them because we didn't have time or too tired. But they had all kinds of neat goodies on it. But again, it's all teak mahogany on it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Inside, teak mahogany, LED lights lit up the whole thing. Very, very plush. And anyway, the bathrooms, which is nice on a boat, were real bathrooms rather than marine heads. And the bathrooms were bigger than the bathroom we have at home. And here's an example of the suites that they had on the boat. They were just absolutely gorgeous. By the way, this trip cost about $6,000 a person with airfare and so forth. Here, one of the negatives to it is here we are looking at another liveaboard. There's a lot of liveaboards there. And they drop a lot of people in the water at one time. We had over 200 divers in the water at one time. Our boat was roughly 20 when you have 10 boats added up. And you run into a lot of divers. But the reefs are still very well protected. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's a very popular place. But we go there, of course, for the diving. And the reefs are absolutely phenomenal. You can see the colors. With all the soft corals, the healthy corals, hard corals, fish everywhere. And it was a real treat. The hard corals are 100% intact, no disease. Very, very impressed with it. And lots of big marine life. There's a big moray eel. And lots of wall diving. Wall diving is where you go over the edge of a wall where it goes down thousands and thousands of feet. And what happens is you get a big wall here of coral, which is just mind-boggling. Again, the fish. Schools and schools of fish, sometimes you couldn't even see through them, which I was really impressed. And I've been a lot of different places, and this one was really, really cool. But anyway, they have the snappers there that are really cool. This right here are little bait fish, and they have schools of those that sometimes there's 1 million of them, and I counted them one time. I think there was 1 million. Everywhere around it. Sometimes you get disorientated because you don't know where you're at looking through them. But very impressed. Lots of fish. Everybody enjoyed it. And again, the color is just phenomenal. One thing that I'm impressed with there is the sea anemones. We have sea anemones here in Florida, but they're a dying breed. They're very, very delicate, and they can't take changes in water acidity and so forth. Here, the water's pretty stable, but this anemone is probably, it's a little bit smaller than what's in the picture there. Just absolutely gorgeous, and they're all different color. Now the anemone feeds with the tentacles right here, and anyway, underneath, what I do is I kind of harass them a little bit. I push them up so I can see the color underneath it. But look at the pink on there, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And here I am harassing it. I take my hand and I wave my hand back and forth, which makes it like a current and pushes it back so I can see what color, because there's all different colors. And you can see the clownfish that hang out inside there. And we don't have clownfish in Florida, so it's a real treat to see clownfish. I love them, and I love to watch them in an anemone. It's what they call a symbiotic relationship. And the clownfish are immune to the poison of the anemone. And if you get close to the clownfish, they go inside the anemone and bury themselves and stick their little head out. And then when you back off, the clownfish then come out. It's fun to watch. So here, this is what they call a carpet anemone. And here you can see them nestling up inside there as I get closer. And here's purple anemone. And then you have the bright orange ones. But anemones everywhere, that just shows the quality of the water there and the healthiness of the reefs and so forth. I really love anemones. So you can see where the clownfish are hanging out. And this was, for you photographers, this was taken with a 105 macro. I do a lot of macro. By the way, the other wide angle pictures are taken with a 15 millimeter fisheye. I'm a Canon guy, and I use mainly a Canon 5D, the original 5D. I had a 5D Mark II and I flooded it. It's now a paperweight. Anyway, it's a very expensive paperweight. But I didn't snap one of the latches on my underwater housing, jumped in the water, and in 2 feet of water it leaked. And it's done. Saltwater and cameras aren't good. But anyway, I'll probably buy another 5D, but anyway, I'm using, or 5D Mark II I should say, but I'm using the 5D. This is a 12 megapixel full frame sensor. I love it. It's a great camera. And, but I generally use the Canon 15 millimeter fisheye lens, which Canon does not make anymore. And then I use a 105 macro. And this was taken with the 105 macro. And the thing is, when I go down with the housing, I can either do one or the other. I set up for wide angle and I take wide angle. I can't swap lenses underwater. And I wish I could. But anyway, sometimes I hit it off where there's good subject matter when I'm down here with my 105 and I go, oh man, I wish I had my 15 on. I need to drag 2 cameras with, but that doesn't happen. They have all different types of anemones here. This is they call it a bubble-tipped anemone. It's like a little ball that you can squeeze and pop it or whatever. This weird stuff there. Anyway, then there's more anemones. Lots of soft corals. I love soft corals. You don't see them very often, especially in the Caribbean. But in certain destinations, they're everywhere. Real bright colors. You got a starfish hanging on the end there. Here you can get an idea of the wall that's vertical that we're diving on. And sometimes we're diving with 2,000 feet of water below us. It's like diving on the edge of the Grand Canyon. And you go over the edge and you neutralize your buoyancy so you don't have to worry about sinking. And you just hang out and look at stuff on there. And it's pretty wild. One thing that I was impressed too was the plate coral. Plate coral was totally intact for acres and acres and square miles and square miles. And we did what we call drift diving because there's a lot of current there where they put you in the water and you just go with the current and the boat picks you up on the other end. We had miles and miles of this coral that was 100% healthy. And anywhere from 20 to 50 feet, this is probably about 20 or 30 feet here. But I was just so impressed with the health of the corals here, which unfortunately, living in Florida, the corals are dying big time in the Caribbean. And that's why we travel to these destinations to see the really good stuff. But this stuff you see in books rather than in person. But what's neat about it too is how it survives. I don't know if they have hurricanes or typhoons in India. I never looked that up. But these corals I don't think would survive in a hurricane or typhoons because they're so delicate. See how they call them table coral in some area too where they come up? But it's really neat. And without a camera, I'm bored down there. I got to have a camera in hand. Every time I've got in the water without one, I felt naked. And it keeps you so busy because there's so much to see down there. And you become so much aware of marine life with a camera in your hand. And the people who aren't into underwater photography, they're swimming over everything. They don't know what's below them. There's so many little critters in the water, and with a camera, you can learn to identify them, find them. Sometimes the goal is I want to take a picture of this or take a picture of that, and it really makes it a lot more fun rather than just sightseeing. Here's another shot, which is kind of cool. I was down probably about 120 feet here looking up at the sun and getting an idea of the wall. And we have guys that swim by, lots of turtles there. And the turtles are eating, they just stop and eat right in front of you. They just hang out, they don't care if you're there or not. And a lot of these fish, I don't even know the names of them, but you see them in pet shops. If you go to an aquarium store or whatever, you see a lot of these exotic fish. They're caught in these areas, Micronesia and so forth, and they airship them to the United States for us to kill them in an aquarium. And most people do. But it's neat to see them in their natural. And this is cool. This is a octopus. When he's red, he is mad. And I was harassing him just a little bit. And but he starts out bluish, and then he starts turning red on the edges, and then instantly he turns 100% red. And then when the flash went off, he really got upset, and he just boom, he was out of there. But red is unhappy. He is pissed off. It's just like he's not happy. Anyway, sharks, a lot of sharks there. They don't bother you. They're actually fun to dive with, hang around. They're curious. They come and check you out. But there's really no danger of them. If you're spearfishing in the water, you're going to have issues with sharks. But just a human being swimming around taking pictures, you really don't have issues. They're fun to be around. And they come up right up to you, too. They and eyeball you. Like this one here is probably 3 feet away. Now this was taken with a 15 fisheye. So if you ever use one of those lenses, you can get right on top, and it looks like you're far away. But and they have some wrecks there. The wrecks are put down for artificial reef purposes. They were sank intentionally. They're not a wreck, but they were still pretty interesting. This picture's pretty cool, but you don't know what it is. And I can't really show you very well, but right here is about a 12-inch long black frogfish. Frogfish are very rare, and they camouflage themselves really well too. And they have a little fishing rod that they use that sticks out in front of their mouth and drops down. It's a membrane that drops down. It looks almost like a fishing rod. And it hangs down and kind of moves around, and another fish will come and try to eat that. And if they do, what happens is that he just sucks them in. And that's how frogfish work. They don't swim for their food. They have this little rod and reel, if you want to call it, which is pretty neat. But they're hard to see. And but anyway, the wrecks are cool. I mean, sometimes they're interesting, but it's just a bunch of steel on the bottom. Sometimes you have pretty neat growth on them. We went to Micronesia to plow Micronesia a couple of years ago, and there they had Peleliu, which they had in World War II, a lot of activity going on there, wrecks and so forth, and we dove the wrecks there that had, some of them had skulls on them still, they're preserved, and they had the firefighting helmets and the gas mask still laying on the deck and so on and so forth. That's what I call history and what's fun. That was sank in a war, this was sank intentionally. And they're still fun to poke around on. One of the highlights of the trip too was the giant manta rays. And what happened was that these people, the Maldesians, or whatever you want to call them, they said, we're going to see manta rays. And I said, oh yeah, sure, everybody says that. Whenever we go on these trips, they always promise you the world and you don't get the world. Anyway, well, yeah, we're going to see them on Thursday or whatever it was. Sure enough, we go out, and there they are. This one is about 12 foot across, and they're absolutely gorgeous and friendly. And this was taken with a 15 fisheye also, which The ray was probably 3 feet away from me when I took that shot. And you just sit there and they just go right over the top of you. What's cool is that a lot of them are tracked by their spots. And they have a book out, a big book that's, in fact it's on the internet now too, of all the different manta rays that are tracked, and they identify them with the spots, and they trace them and they travel all over the world. And in May we went to Yap, which is in Micronesia, and that's over by Guam. Anyway, that place is noted for the manta rays too. And they had all the pictures of the manta rays on the wall, and they had names for every one of them where they can identify them. But they travel all over the world. They'll find them in Maldives, and they'll find them in Hawaii, and then they'll find them in Micronesia. But it's amazing the path and how Mother Nature works. In May, not May, in the fall, they come in and mate. And that's when you'll see them coming in like lined up like at the airport, at the Atlanta airport, where the rays are just flying. And the males are chasing the females is what it is. And but anyway, it's pretty interesting to watch. But look at that, isn't that cool? Now, what happens, why the rays are there, is that it's a cleaning station for them. And see this little guy right here? And the other fish, what they do is they stop, and those little fish will come and clean the parasites off their body. And that's why they go to certain areas, and that's how we can find them. How they're predictable is because of these cleaning stations. And but this one is just putting on a show for us. It's going around in circles and having a good time. I could have touched it. But really cool stuff. But it's like flying an airplane, like a stealth bomber there. But anyway, it's amazing how they work, and how it works. Then another thing, this is what they call a marble stingray. That's really beautiful. Again, the colors. The colors are just phenomenal, the different colors. Now, if you don't have a flash on your camera, you're not going to see these colors. They're going to be all washed out. But when you bring a flash down with strobe, whatever you want to call it, it illuminates all the colors. And your eyeball won't see that unless you have a flashlight. I use these two big strobes and illuminates the colors. And isn't that, it's just absolutely gorgeous, the colors. It's amazing. You just sit there and look all day and go, ah. This is neat too. There's a school of batfish that I've never seen before. Cornwall. Batfish are cool. I mean, these are about probably 2 feet high right now. They're in. They had 2 of these down in the Keys. I don't know if you ever heard of Molasses Reef in Key Largo. They had 2 of these batfish that were swimming around with, I'm trying to think what, they're jacks. And anyway, they came in and caught them. They were there for almost 6 years. And they didn't want them in the waters here. So somebody came in and finally caught them and took them away, and they're in an aquarium now. Somehow or another they got here into the States. They don't know how. But there's Mortis Idol. You ever seen the Disney, what is it, the Disney animation of the, what's Nemo, yeah. Anyway, this was pretty cool. There's 2 of them. Neat shot. There's a clown trigger. These are very, very rare. I've never seen one before. Can't even get close to them. This was taken probably 4 or 5 feet away. They just take off. Now this is interesting here. These are lionfish. And we have them everywhere in the state of Florida. They have invaded our territory. In fact, when we were in Yap in May, that's where they belong. We saw 2 of them diving in a week. We did 25 dives and saw 2 lionfish where they're supposed to be. You go to the Keys, you go to the East Coast, you go to the Caribbean, they're everywhere. And the only predator they have is man. Nobody else wants them. So we do, now we have the dive industry, they have missions where people go out and kill them. And they're good to eat. This is pretty cool. Again, a little cave there with all the colors and so forth. By the way, that guy there, he's got a Canon 60 in a housing. He's a Canon guy too. But anyway, the different manufacturers of housings, and the guys that go on our trip, the serious photographers, they have about $6,000 to $8,000 invested in the camera gear when we go. I mean, they take serious pictures, and they got good stuff, good lenses. And people say, well, how do you take pictures? I got, by the way, in my office, a store, I got pictures all over the wall, and I said, I want to take pictures like that, how can I do it? Well, first of all, you got to have a good camera. You got to know how to use it, and you got to go places where this stuff is at. If you don't put all three of those in a combination, you're never going to get pictures like this. And I'm fortunate to be able to do all three. And we have people that are doing it. Like next year, I've got 2 trips planned, and they're already sold out where these big, heavy-duty photographers are going. And they're serious. I mean, they bring big cases of camera gear and everything else. They don't care what it costs to get on a plane. They just want it there when they get there. And I'm the same way. It costs $150 each way to ship it. I don't care. The airlines. Anyway, we also had the opportunity to dive with whale sharks. And this was amazing. I've never done it before. The whale sharks are out here in the Gulf, by the way. If you're lucky enough to see them, they're about 50 miles offshore. They migrate through here all the time, but they're way offshore. Sometimes they come closer, but not very often. But this was cool, and there was lots of them. When we pulled up to the area, the dive guides said, look at that black blob there, look at that black blob there, look at that black blob there. Sure enough, we motored over there, jumped in the water. We only snorkeled with them. And one came up to me, and this big tail, and hadn't been about even big. He swam right next to me. I had to move out of the way, otherwise his big fin would have hit me. But they're so graceful. And they eat plankton. They're not a man-eater or fish-eater. They eat plankton. They just move around very slow. And but they are really neat. And they don't mind humans. Lots of different corals there. Some of them are just phenomenal. This is taken with a 15 fisheye tube. It's a little overdone with Photoshop. I think it's got a little too much color in it. And here we have a humphead wrasse. These things are cool. These are hard to get close to. They're very rare. And these fish are about 4 feet long. And they are what they call a wrasse. And we go to Palau, and then one of the reasons Palau, the dive guides know them, and they bring hard-boiled eggs with. And they feed them hard-boiled eggs. And they eat everything, they spit the shell out. They do not eat the yellow, they only eat the white. So here they're munching away, you see the shells coming out, and then all of a sudden you see the yellow coming out. You don't see any white. It's amazing. But then they have the emperor angels. These are, I mean, the colors on these and who painted them are so cool. I mean, they're just mind-boggling. And then the colors in the background that just add that much more, which I think is so cool. What happened there? It just froze up. Just when I was getting to the good stuff. Anyway, this is taken with a 15 fisheye. That shot was taken about a foot away from the anemone in the front. The diver's about 10 feet in the back. It looks like the diver's 50 feet in the back. But again, the trick to wide angle photography, and that's how you get good pictures, is with wide angle up close. The least amount of water that you have in your photo, the better your pictures are. Of course, I love taking silhouette shots and also sunbursts. Sunbursts are a little tricky with digital, but getting the rays coming down. This was the path that we took on our journey all the way around the different islands. And one of the things that they did one night, this was almost a disaster in my book. The was meeting on an island, and everybody got off and went to a cookout. And the food, by the way, in Maldives was just so bad. I mean, it was so bad. They had curry. You like curry? Yeah. They had curry for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even more often than that. And anyway, here we go to this little luau cookout, and they had this food, and also one of this is a Muslim country, and alcohol is a no-no. You have to order it, like on our boat, because we have people that like to have cocktails when they're done diving, and we had to order all our liquor on the boat. We could not touch it. Every time we wanted a drink, they had to make it, and they pour these little weak little drinks, and then they write it down on a slate, or on a piece of paper for you in order to keep track of it. My wife's bill and mine, the combination, was over $700 for the week on the boat, just in that, because they hose you so bad. You can't buy liquor on there, they have to ship it in from somewhere. Anyway, in this thing here, we had curry, and their local beer, where it came from, it didn't come from Maldives, it came from somewhere else, and it was the lousiest beer that you can imagine. I couldn't even eat it. But the only highlight of it, they made these out of sand. Because Maldives is known for manta rays and whale sharks. So they made these sculptures in the sand with candles and so on and so forth. Another thing that they had one bathroom for 200 people. And it was bad. And they're like, I don't even know what's growing on that fish there. Look at that. But I mean, it was, anyway. We were so happy to get real food when we came back to the States. Actually, when we went to Dubai, I found a Burger King so I could get a burger. Boy, it was lousy there too, but anyway. Anyway, we did a tour of Mali. And again, this is 100% Muslims. And these people are strange. Anyway, everything they do is different. And they have a lot of mosques there. And you can see when they go and then they take their shoes off. By the way, the crew on our boat was all Muslim. In the middle of the day, you'd see a whole bunch of sandals. Nobody around, no crew anywhere. They're down in the bilge praying. Just whenever they feel like. I mean, that's up to them, that's fine, but it's just weird how it works. But you know that you're not going to find them when their shoes are all sitting right here. And, but anyway, this was different going to this place. Would I go back? No. But anyway, this is the most popular, come back to Mali. I like Maldives, I just didn't care for this, but it was kind of interesting. We had a little tour guide. But again, this is the most populated island ever as far as square mile, people per square mile. This averages about 3 feet below sea level. The highest point of Maldives is 7 feet above. In fact, the airport, the runway, is 4 feet below sea level. And they have a big wall around it in case they have had floods there. They have had tsunamis there that have done a lot of damage. Now this is their cemetery. And I thought that this was kind of weird. You see there's a little flash there with a palm tree in the foreground. Anyway, the round ones are the women. The pointed ones are the men. The size of the tombstone determines roughly how old they were when they died. So if you look at the different ones there, you can see the different heights of them, and that determines the age of them. Where you can see that one was a child, or however, but I don't know what the exact age was. A lot of them are busted up too, but anyway, these have been there for centuries. And I thought that was kind of interesting, though. And but anyway, there we go. And here you feel safe. But those boats, I don't even think they run. But anyway, they were anchored offshore. And anyway, that was Mali. But anyway, here go back to we're going to jump to Dubai. I don't want to take too long tonight, so I'm going to kind of condense this down. I could be here all night, by the way. Anyway, we ended up going to Dubai. And one of the things that we did the first night we got there, Emirates Air, by the way, set up all these tours, first class. They had these Toyota Land Cruisers, and we were going for a desert cruise. And they have these Toyota Land Cruisers totally decked out in leather, roll bars decked out in leather. I mean, it's like everything is first class there. They picked us up in front of the hotel. They take us out to the desert. Before they get into the desert, they let air out of the tires so they get better traction. Then we go into this conservation area, and we cruise through the dunes. There's like 50 cars in a row, and I think there's about 4 to 5 people in each car. And you just fly over these hills, and they have them spaced out far enough so they can see when the car in front of them is clear, so they don't come over a hill and land on top of each other. But the guys are really good drivers, and it's a roller coaster ride. I mean, people are yelling and screaming and hanging on. It was fun. I tried to use my video on the camera, and I couldn't do it. Anyway, we stop, and then what happens is that everybody gets out and starts taking pictures of the sunset and so forth, which is really cool over the desert there. And, but anyway, the destination was a tourist trap in the middle of the desert. And what they do is that they charge you X amount of dollars and they give you their lousy beer. No, the Dubai's better, that's right. And wine, and anyway, sit in the mountains, which is actually kind of cool. But you have to go and do what the folks do there, smoke their, what do you call those things, the hookah. They have all different flavors, they come by and put chocolate or apple in it or whichever, and which was kind of cool. And you sit on these tables, like Ahab, the Arab, and they feed you curry. No, I don't know what, I can't remember what they had. They had a barbecue. And then they have the girls dancing. And then you can play tours and go for a camel ride. That's what you do in the desert. Which the next day, we got on a bus. And anyway, this again was organized by Emirates Air. And they picked us up at the airport. These buses were just phenomenal. First class all the way. And we went for a tour to Dubai. And what's interesting is all the different architecture. One of the buildings, I can't see it, this actually has a twist in it. Can you see? There it is right there. Whoop. There it is right here. Look at the architecture there. Isn't that a weird one? So anyway, that was a real treat. By the way, we were there on a Thursday, no, excuse me, Friday, and that's their Sunday. So everybody was out boating that day. It looks like everybody going to Key Wading there. Another thing too is no fresh water, it's all desalination. Grasses are perfect, the yards, flowers everywhere. And again, look at the architecture. I mean, if you walk around there with a camera, you go nuts. I'm taking these pictures in a bus. We're cruising. And I was using my little pocket G16 camera when I took these, or G12, whatever I had at the time. I didn't use my digital SLR here. We went to the museum, which was pretty cool. There's the tallest building in the world. Dubai had to top everybody. And it's 2,800 feet, just shy of 2,800 feet tall. And as far as being able to go up it, you can go up it as much as 1,800 feet. From 1,800 feet, the last 1,000 feet, you can't go up. It's all structured just to say they had a taller building. And they have restaurants, they have condos there, they have businesses in it, all the above. Unbelievable. It looks like a rocket ship sitting there. Anyway, again, some of the buildings are just phenomenal. A lot of mosques there. Again, the flowers everywhere. It's just gorgeous. Here we're a little closer to the building as we rip by it. And the roads are just perfectly flat. And you could go at 200 miles an hour and not even know it because everything is perfect. All the structures there are unbelievable how well they did it. Now you got to realize Dubai is new. It's less than 20 years old. Just absolutely gorgeous.
Bicycles?
What's that?
Any bicycles?
Bicycle? I don't know if you could or not.
20 degrees.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad when we were there. I didn't notice anybody bicycling. Not on those roads. Those are freeways. You wouldn't want to be on there, but it would be a great one to do. What's interesting about Dubai, they have no sewer system. All right? They did not build it in their infrastructure when they designed it. So what happens in all the resorts, they have a big tank on the side where all the stuff goes to. Every day, trucks come pump it out, and they take it out to the desert. They have separate roads that these trucks go on that you don't even see. Tourists don't see, local people don't see. And if you ever get bored, get on YouTube and type in poop snake. Again, that's poop snake. Poop snake Dubai. And it shows these people with a video camera following these trucks. And they go for 10 miles and it's solid trucks full of poop. And they're taken out to the desert. Now we have a septic or sewer system that does everything. They don't have that. They just take it out in the desert and dump it. And they do it every day, miles and miles of traffic. Unbelievable. But again, you don't see it. This is pretty neat here. Right here is a tennis court. And it's also a helicopter pad. Now, I didn't have my helicopter at the time, so they wouldn't let me land there. No. you're fortunate enough to have one, and you're staying there, they will close the tennis court down and you can land your helicopter there. Anyway, tallest building again. A lot of these names I recognize from golfers and so forth, but I don't even know what the names are. But this was interesting, the malls. They had everything that you can imagine. But one thing that was cool is that they had a Canon store, and they only had Canon products in it. But I'm going to show you that in a second. By the way, this is their cell towers. They're all camouflaged as a palm tree. So they don't have any crap in the way. They don't have like if you look around and you see all the cell towers we have, they're everywhere. They hide them here with the palm tree. And Atlantis, there's two of them. There's one in Nassau and there's one in Dubai. This is Palm Island. Are you people familiar with Palm Island and how they build the structures into the water? This is on the end of it. This is what we toured, which was really cool. Some of these are messed up. But anyway, we did the river tour, played tourists all the way. Now, another thing that we did too is we went to the gold market. And we were there, what is the date on there? But anyway, May 3rd, 2013. That was the price of gold that day. So when you went shopping, you were smart. You knew what the price of gold was, so you could end up. Yep, okay, now I'm just about done here. Anyway, this is it. Hershey's, just a Hershey store. You ever hear of that? Just a Canon store. They only sold Canon products in there. They had an aquarium on the inside of it. This is in the mall. Just again, first class. We went to the spice market, and the fishing market is there. We did a little tour on the river. Wherever we go, I always put my sticker on the boat. There it is. There's our motley crew. There's the crew on the boat. There's my wife, the girl. They were crew on the boat too. Anyway, that's it. Do you guys have any questions or anything? Or? Yeah, Maldives is concerned about the rising ocean. Yeah, definitely. Another question? Yeah.
Are they having any problem with starfish wasting disease as we are in the West Coast?
What kind of
Starfish wasting?
Not that I'm aware of. The Gulf is a totally different animal.
No, I'm talking about the West Coast of the United States.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, the starfish there? I didn't hear about that. Yeah. I didn't even see, to be honest with you, I didn't see any starfish in their brittle stars I did, but not starfish.
What do you attribute to the water being so healthy here versus?
Man. We're the worst, we're our worst enemy. And what really destroyed the reefs and the Keys is this coast right here. Naples, Florida is what ruined the Keys, and people don't want to accept that. But before I-75 connected Naples, there was hardly anybody coming here. All right, and as soon as 75 came through, and then the culprits are the Gulf communities, all the fertilizer, it runs into the waters, and it runs into the Everglades, and the Everglades actually drains through the Keys. And now they're more aware of the nitrates from fertilizers and so forth, where years ago they didn't care. And we killed it. And before this coast was developed, the reefs were beautiful. And they know that it's the golf courses. I mean, that's what sells Naples, it's golf courses. And you look at all the square miles of golf courses and all the stuff that makes them look pretty. When it rains, where does it go? So it's unfortunate, but you have to get away from where man is in order to see the pretty stuff. That's why we travel to these destinations, to see the really, really neat stuff that man hasn't destroyed yet. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Got one in the back.